This is probably the most important electric car of 2025, the Skoda ELROQ. And together in this video, we'll find out what it can actually do in everyday life. And with that, hey, and welcome to this new video here at joenohs, and welcome to the everyday test of the Skoda ELROQ. This is the first part. There will be a second video coming, where we'll dive into the consumption, charging performance, and also the highway comfort. So be sure to subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss that part. Today, though, we're focusing on what the car can actually do in everyday life. How does it handle a stroller? What about transporting something bigger? How agile is the vehicle, and is it really worth the investment overall? 33,900 euros. Without any discounts, the car costs only 600 euros more than a VW ID.3, but offers significantly more. It doesn't quite measure up to its bigger brother, the Skoda Enyaq, which held the title as the best-selling model on VW's MEB platform for quite some time. This success was largely due to its spacious trunk, making it a hit with families, and its design that avoided an overly electric screaming aesthetic has managed to convince. Now, thanks to the facelift, the Enyaq looks just like the ELROQ here at the front. So you really have to look twice to recognize it in everyday life. On the side, though, it's quite clear because both vehicles share the exact same wheelbase of 2.76 meters. The length of the vehicles, however, differs by 16 centimeters. 4.49 meters here and 4.65 meters for the Enyaq is actually quite a noticeable difference. The real question is, inside it won't feel noticeably different if the wheelbase remains the same. But what's happening with the trunk? We'll discuss that in greater detail later as well. But before that, let's first talk about the design. Because yes, of course, the car is priced at 33,900 euros, and it doesn't look exactly the same as this one here. But there's also a higher trim available because what we have here is not the sport line. You can recognize it by the fact that the silver part at the bottom isn't included anymore. Other features here are optional though. For example, the Matrix LED headlights, and also this light signature up here, which is not part of the standard series. Currently, it's only available in the launch or first edition, which also features a kind of continuous light band. It's also planned to be added later in a different display option. However, in the complete base version, there's just a single illuminated strip here. Do you have to recognize it, or do you have to know when ordering the vehicle? Or is it more like a surprise that only one strip lights up at the top? But as soon as you take the LED, or rather the Matrix LED headlights, then you have it included. Visually, I truly think it's really well done. The car was parked outside for quite a while, and every time I came home, I saw the front and thought to myself, wow, it really does look cool. And I also like the color, though it is an additional cost. In the base model, the vehicle comes in a slightly darker blue, and I'm a huge fan of that. I love it when vehicles aren't just basic gray, black, or white, but when the manufacturer offers, we choose a shade, and when it's not an orange or a neon yellow, but instead a color that's actually where you can actually settle with it and think, yeah, it looks pretty cool, then I find that genuinely really good. And that's why we have this one here in the base in blue. In terms of features, there's also quite a bit to choose from. So the base of the 50 model comes with 52 usable kilowatt hours. The 60 version has 59 kilowatt hours, and all the larger ones then come with 77 kilowatt hours. That means in the largest variant, it's still not the new battery type that you could see, for example, in the ID.7. That's the familiar one also used in the Enyaq, ID.4, Q4, and similar models. The ranges then vary by roughly 100 to 150 kilometers each, depending on the chosen equipment options and naturally the type of tires fitted as well. We've got these stylish 20-inch rims with winter tires here. In the base model, though, you'll get 19-inch steel rims. They actually don't look half bad visually, but you'll have to make some compromises, especially when it comes to the range if you opt for larger rims. The 85 variant we tested here has a WLTP range of 540 kilometers, but it also costs around 10,000 euros more than the base model. And the base 50 model still gets around 350 kilometers. That should be enough for most people in everyday life, and for the occasional long trip, you can take advantage of the fast charging capabilities. The AC charging capacity is the same for all though, so charging at 11 kilowatts in the city or at home works just fine for the smaller model. That you can recharge from 0 to 100% in less than 4.5 hours, which is no problem at all overnight. Or, in urban areas, you can quickly top up about half the battery in just around 2.5 hours. For the larger models, it takes a bit more time. With the 77 kilowatt-hour version, we're looking at around 7 hours. But for that, the night is completely sufficient, and charging at home is definitely worth it because that's where the electricity is the cheapest. And the most affordable is, when you benefit from the smart electricity prices at the energy exchange. And that brings us to the sponsor of the video, Tibber, my smart electricity plan, which we also use ourselves and benefit from. Because there, you only pay what the electricity actually costs at the market at that moment. Simply open the Tibber app and check the current price, then switch on the appliances accordingly, or thanks to smart charging, let the car charge automatically using an algorithm. So you'll have a full battery the next day while still paying only the minimum amount. And to make it even cheaper, as a new customer, Tibber is giving you the basic fee for free for the next 6 months if you sign up by the 31st, by March. Plus, below the video, you'll find a €50 welcome voucher with my code, which you can use to buy things like a wall box in the Tibber online shop, or even the Tibber Pulse, also an accessory product so you can see on your smartphone how much electricity you're currently using. And overall, Tibber ensures that you not only get the best deal for your electric car, but also have the cheapest possible electricity at home. With wind and solar energy surging in February and March, electricity can sometimes be as low as 0 cents per kilowatt hour. Then it's just the grid fees on top, but you can hardly charge your electric car anywhere else as cheaply. That's why feel free to check out the link below the video. Before we dive into that pile over there, just a quick word on the design. And it's always a tricky challenge when you attempt to downsize an iconic, widely recognized and much-loved car model, for example, the Skoda Enyaq. But I think Skoda truly managed to pull it off perfectly. It's a bit like the phenomenon we recently observed with the ID.1. A wide, compact car really makes an impression, a height of 1.62 meters, identical to the Enyaq, and a width of even a few millimeters more, over 1 meter. 88. Ensure that this rear really stands out and looks impressive. Plus, the decision to make it a bit rougher down here intentionally so it appears more off-road ready and rugged, and then only paint it from this point upwards. I think it's really cool and has a great visual appeal. And also, this light section here naturally reminds you of the Enyaq, but it really suits this car well. What do you all think? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments section below, because I'm pretty sure this year it's going to be seen on the roads extremely often. And to let you know what you're getting into, that's exactly why I'm here, to give you an idea of the trunk space and also show you all the details. And I've measured it. The trunk capacity is stated as 470 liters. The Enyaq itself comes in at 585, so that's 115 liters less here in the more compact version. But what does that mean in terms of dimensions? The length of the trunk is 85.5 centimeters, the width is about 1.02 meters, and the height varies between 50 and 60 centimeters depending on whether you've got the double loading floor or, like me in this case, you don't have it. Because in this exhibition variant we're able to show you here, there are several different compartments underneath. It's kind of nice for sorting things, but it doesn't really help if you want to fully make use of the entire trunk space. There you can either decide in the configuration or afterwards what suits you. You can choose what you prefer either way, and you can gain about 10 centimeters extra. At the bottom, for example, there are also separators that you can place on this felt here to fix certain things in place. And in this exhibition package, there are also compartments on the side, which I find quite practical. You can also place things up here, and there are small hooks where you can hang things. Hanging brings up a good point because depending on the exhibition variant, the ELROQ can pull just as much as the Enyaq, so up to 1.2 tons braked at an 8% incline, and the maximum static vertical load is also identical at 75 kilograms. So 2 e-bikes should fit comfortably on there. You always have to keep in mind that's including the bike rack, which usually already weighs around 15 to 20 kilograms. You'll then have to subtract that from the payload. The trunk volume is decent though, and there are also some really clever features. Up here, this net is perfect for storing the charging cable. Back here, there are several compartments to organize things. You can fold this section down to store items like dirty laundry or whatever else you might need. You can simply remove this section and hang it forward, which effectively creates a second layer to carry additional items up here. This smart feature helps maximize space and keeps everything neatly organized. So they don't clutter up the trunk, or there are nets in the back to organize things. So, simply clever. Skoda really gets a lot right here. And while we're on the topic, the ice scraper is still conveniently placed in the tailgate, and the warning triangle is also neatly tucked away directly in the tailgate as well. But measurements are always tricky. Everyday objects are a whole different matter. And that's why we'll start off here with a full load of drinks. How does it all look to you? In the trunk, if you're planning to transport different crate shapes, colors, or anything like that. And you can already see quite a lot actually fits in there, always under the premise that we have the transport package here. There's no double cargo floor, or it's not usable because of those extra compartments underneath. And cleverly, there's also this trunk mat, which I think is really cool. If you're searching for a trunk mat for your electric car, make sure to check out EV Supply in the links below the video. For example, they have trunk and interior floor mats for MWB vehicles, Tesla models, all kinds of cool options, some even self-made and developed from recycled materials. And you can save 10% on the entire shop through the link below the video. So it's definitely worth checking out, especially since I'm looking at this mat right now. It's really well made, even folds up. Here, you get a sense of it. Groceries, weekly shopping, and similar items fit in without any trouble. When it comes to traveling, the length of suitcases can quickly become a real concern. Especially here, my large travel suitcase just about fits in terms of length, but that doesn't mean you'll run into space issues. No, it's obvious this is the maximum size. A small or medium carry-on, however, fits without any issues. And as you can see, we've got 2 carry-on bags, a medium and a large suitcase, fitting in without any problems. I have to admit, I'd need to take this one out to make sure the parcel shelf can close properly as it normally would, especially because of this extra storage compartment up here. But I'd say, when you're going on vacation, you usually just put them on top anyway, and then everything fits in really well. Things get much more specific when it comes to family matters. We've now packed our kiddie stroller in here. It fits lengthwise just about right, but it's also a slightly larger and more durable model. But even next to it, you still have room for either 2 larger suitcases or alternatively 2 carry-on suitcases plus something narrow in front. And that's great because there's even enough space up here for the hat shelf. With the stroller, it's already a lot more challenging. I finally managed to get it done by standing the tub upright and pushing the frame a little further back. Then it fits in. Theoretically, you could also fit a small changing bag or something like that next to it. Honestly, there's really not much more space left at all, but I've got to admit I'm genuinely surprised it even fits in there. Lengthwise. All right, let's try this again together. So, that wouldn't have worked. You can really tell the difference. Naturally, that includes a trunk test in daily life. And here I've just loaded my e-bike into the ELROQ to test out how well it fits and handles the available space inside. I had to record it and figured I'd just bring it along. On the left seat is the ISO fix mount, and the bike fits in here quite nicely with the front wheel removed and stored. You just have to make sure when removing the parcel shelf that you take the charging cable with you. As you can see here, I almost forgot. Then I threw it into the front of the car, so you can still charge it in the city, take the bike out, and be on your way without any major problems. But a bike does fit inside. With a tow hitch, you obviously have even more options, and it's not exactly the norm to transport it this way, but it's at least possible. After all the design, exterior, and the very detailed trunk impression, now let's finally shift our focus to the interior, and it's truly cool. There's this fabric in connection with the Lodge trim variant, which features a light interior with orange stitching and my highlight, orange seat belts. That was also available in the first edition. In this variant, you can add it as an option, though it's mandatory. It really elevates the interior, making it feel even more premium. In the base version, everything here is black, and there's also a mid-level trim option. Personally, I'd go for this one, especially because in this class, Skoda doesn't include seat ventilation. That's why the fabric seats feel significantly more comfortable during the summer heat. Underneath, there's this decorative insert here and a nice matte finish. Generally, there's very little piano black here, except for the volume dial underneath. The steering wheel also features the classic layout with 2 scroll wheels, and the cruise control is a single stalk. Behind the steering wheel, similar to the Enyaq, there's an integrated driver information display. Into the dashboard and in front of it, optionally, the head-up display, which I would recommend to everyone. We'll talk about it later when we're driving. The quality here is acceptable for the price, I would say, in the upper range. It's hard plastic. Well, it's very slightly soft, but you really have to press deeply to notice. So when you rest your arm on it, it feels more like hard plastic. Beneath that, there's a decorative inlay from the front and faux leather on the door. Unusual door handles, but ones you can easily get used to. Behind them, you have the windows and mirror adjustment, and below that, optionally, the small trash bin. I always find it very practical and cool that this is always included here with Skoda. The middle section is also upholstered where the knee rests. There you have a storage area, relatively small cup holders, and the gear selector right in the center with in front of it. A wireless charging pad for your smartphone is conveniently placed there. Right above that, you'll find the large 13-inch display. It's been a while since I last sat in the Enyaq, but subjectively, it feels narrower to me, though a bit wider. Feel free to correct me if you know more. The Enyaq also has 13 inches, but I got the impression that the layout is a bit different. We'll talk about the functions briefly once we start driving, but overall, it's pretty much the same. Like the big wheel, and that's it for the interior. I feel comfortable. It's really nicely done. It's not overdone in any way, but rather consistent. And thoroughly well executed. We'll see how it feels in the back. I'll consciously take a seat on the right side today because the passenger seat is now as far back as it goes and pretty low down as well. And you can see how much legroom I still have here. It's also nicely recessed, and as always with Skoda, there are optional intelligent storage solutions to choose from. Like here, this compartment that you can use in the lower section since the floor remains completely flat across the entire area. And there you can just stash things, like for example this tablet holder here. It can either be integrated into the center armrest here, which means you can clip it right on top. So I can clip my phone or tablet in here, or I can place it in front of me, and then I'm glad for a change not to have the sport seats, but ones where you can see the headrest bars here. Because there's the holder, and that's where I can conveniently place it in here. And then during the drive, I can watch videos back here. And I find that very, very clever and cool. It's a very simple mechanism. If you don't need it, you store it down there. Above that, there's the optional 3-zone climate control with seat heating for the outer seats. And I have to say, I'm sitting here really comfortably. I don't feel any compromises in terms of space. I have a really nice seating position. The backrest angle works perfectly for me. Let's check it out together as usual. Can I adjust the backrest? No, there's only one fixed position. And for this, there are here the sunshade blinds, which are extremely important and useful, especially for families. The upper part has hard plastic, a faux leather insert, the door handle, and below, all hard plastic. But since everything where I rest my arm is soft, I really don't find it that bad. This white material ties the interior together, giving it a refined, elevated look. In combination with the dark roof, it's also not as gloomy or dim inside this space. There's no glass roof in place yet, but it's planned to be added. We'll just have to wait and see how it'll look then. I think given the vehicle's width, you can comfortably fit 3 people in the back. There's just plenty of space width-wise, and you can see here the front seat adjusted to me at 1.73 meters. How much additional space there is here. And of course, the ISOFIX space can't be missing in a family test, which is why it's mounted here on the rear 2 ISOFIX points. And you can see there's still plenty of room. That means I can easily turn it around even with the car seat installed, and there's still plenty of space available here. Plus, there's also ISOFIX on the passenger seat, which I personally think is really important. Especially with this type of vehicle in this size and segment, being able to go out alone with the baby and having the ISOFIX positioned in the front, I find really cool. I really miss that in a lot of other vehicles. The range test is still coming up, but for now, here's a quick impression of how it drives on the road. And I have to say the car is extremely agile. You can feel it at every point, like when I'm driving around here, it's insane how far it can turn. At every point, you feel the car's more compact. What's my issue with that? No, it's actually really cool for everyday life in the city. You can fit into parking spots more easily, you have better all-around visibility, and the car feels more agile and nimble. The turning circle should be almost half a meter better than the Enyaq's, which is a pretty significant and noticeable improvement. Additionally, I have the B mode and the D mode. In D, there's also the adaptive recuperation. That means the vehicle decides based on traffic, navigation, and road conditions how the car recuperates, whether it brakes more or less. And that's absolutely fine. Additionally, there are different driving modes available as options. So I can switch to sport mode here, and in the 85 version, I've got the APP 550 motor from Volkswagen. That means 286 horsepower and over 540 Newton meters of torque, and they come in so abruptly and really pull hard. It's really fun to drive and you'd never expect it. From the outside, it doesn't look like much without the sport line trim. It's just subtle and a sensible little city cruiser, that's the feeling you get. And then you press this and it really pulls you forward nicely. The chassis also features the well-known DCC from VW, which is also available in the Enyaq. That means I can also precisely adjust the different stiffness and comfort levels within the individual modes here, ensuring the drive is perfectly tailored to my preferences. From very comfortable, where it really lets more through, to sporty, where, well, in sporty mode, of course, more is absorbed, and in comfortable mode, it absorbs more loosely. That's really good. When it comes to consumption figures, range, and also the power output, we'll dive into all of that during the long distance test. I'll keep that separate because the video has already reached a good length with the family focus included. But my first driving impression is really positive. It handles just like an Enyaq, plain and simple. Due to the wheelbase, you never get the feeling that the car is smaller. And I find that really cool and impressive, especially when you have a compact car that manages to feel like a much larger one. Here, let's take a turn, full lock, and I'll get around smoothly. Yeah, that's seriously impressive. And with that, we come to the software. I just want to touch on it briefly, but I find the latest software version at Volkswagen really good, and I'm deliberately saying here at Volkswagen because it's the same software. And what issues didn't we face in the past? Things have really improved a lot, and now we've actually ended up with a truly solid version here. The current software version 5.4 means I've got cool route planning here, smart features, and Apple CarPlay integrated seamlessly. And Android Auto, both wirelessly included, and right here on the screen I can set it up as a shortcut below and then use it. I'll quickly switch to the cyclist overtaking. It's moving along really well, and CarPlay and Android Auto are both very sharp, well displayed, and working without any issues. I'm missing the apps a bit, can't download too much here now. In the shop, it's actually just the connected services available. If something isn't unlocked right from the start, you can still purchase it later when you're standing there. Notably, also a feature, great route planning. And we'll do that using voice. Navigate me to the Fontenay Hotel in Hamburg. We were there just recently for a driving event, and then we can try this out here. It opens this small thing. A small info window pops up in the dialogue with the voice assistant, and I think it's actually pretty neat. And then the route is calculated, and it's incredibly fast and reliable every single time without any issues at all, which is really impressive. And then you get all the charging points displayed here, and you can adjust that as well. What % at the charger and what at the destination point? I think it's really well done. In my opinion, the Volkswagen Group is currently setting the benchmark. And that isn't just about the software here, no, it's also about the AR head-up display. Because having small arrows or traffic info displayed right in front of you makes it really fun. But we'll dive into that during the long-distance test. The family test has been successfully passed. That's how I'd wrap up the video because Skoda truly delivered an impressive vehicle. I'll do my very best to test the car in its absolute base trim version for you guys. So, nearly those 33,900 euros because I'm convinced that it's going to be a really good option. Of the ELROQ. In this configuration, it costs over 50,000 euros, which of course needs to be emphasized. However, it also has a lot of features that you don't really need in this class. And I think under 4.50 meters, with the battery options and the trim, it's really well done. And 77 kilowatt hours for just over 40,000 euros, that, in my opinion, is truly competitive, and some people might need to get used to that first before fully recognizing its value. Competitors such as the BYD Atto 2 and the Volvo XC40 fall into this category, yet they come with a significantly higher price tag. At least the Volvo, the Atto 2, is similar in this range here, but it will show who will take the lead this year. For me, it was really fun to show you the car here in a bit of a different test for a change, and if you don't want to miss how the long distance and nighttime test turns out, make sure to subscribe to the channel down below. Up there, you'll catch the car's first look at the world premiere.